I can tell you that I worked for Johnson & Johnson in 87 and 88, and from 87 to 88, and that's the only relationship I've had with Johnson & Johnson in how many years now? Since 88 to almost 20 years. I was a lot younger than that.
Any family members?
My family members did not work for Johnson & Johnson. They have never worked for Johnson & Johnson, and they have absolutely no relationship whatsoever with Johnson & Johnson.
Mary Jane Cooper, I lived at 50 Maddock Road. I understand that the attorney has indicated that it's your choice to answer the question, but you've all answered for yourselves. I'd like the answer to include your family members, your spouses, your children, your parents, and that. I understand it's your choice, but I think that that's an important part of the answer.
I'd like to respond to that. That's what I did. I think I heard Mr. Bird did. I think I heard Mayor Sandem.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Perhaps you should ask.
So each one of you was indicating that no member of your family, no spouse, has had any significant business relations during the period of time in which you've been voting on these issues.
I believe I've already answered that, and I wonder if there's anybody else who wants to say the same thing again.
Well, could you repeat your answer, because I didn't hear it?
Ma'am, I've already answered that question.
Well, could you repeat it? I didn't hear it.
I believe I already answered the question.
So the answer is no. Is that the answer? Your answer was no. My husband has no significant business relationship with Johnson & Johnson during the period of time that I've been voting on these issues.
My husband has never provided any consulting services to Johnson & Johnson, Janssen, or any other J&J division or subsidiary, nor has he ever solicited any such business. In fact, since starting his firm, Sidon Pharmaceutical Strategies, the only large pharmaceutical companies such as J&J or Janssen, which has been a client of my husband, is Pfizer, with whom he has maintained an exclusive consulting relationship among big pharmaceutical companies since January 2007. Contacts from Pfizer can be provided to verify this relationship if required. I have heard of the allegations that you and others have made.
I haven't made any allegations, so
others
please,
have made,
please.
But you're alleging now. Are you?
I haven't alleged anything. Ma'am,
I have heard the allegations, and I find them to be patently false.
Well, I've made none.
And are not substantiated by any data. And I have always done what I believe to be in the best interest of the township and the residents here in the 8 years that I worked on this Hopewell Township Committee. And I find these false accusations to be painful to myself and to my family and to all of the many supporters who have worked on my behalf for all these years. They are false. I deny them. And I find them to be without any fact.
I firmly resent some of the things that you are saying, that you are accusing me of making allegations. I'm not even aware of what allegations are. That they are false is offensive to me, because I take great pride in my representation. It offends me to be accused of saying falsehoods here in front of my neighbors and others in something that is being recorded. And I find that patently offensive. You're offended, I'm offended of making falsehoods. I have not made any falsehoods. If I say something mistakenly, it's a mistake, but it is not a falsehood. And so, please, when you say that you have answered it, I don't know where you have answered it. I didn't hear you answer it in this room.
I did hear that. She did say that. You said that none of us said that. I'll be very honest. I find it a little disingenuous to say that when coming up and repeatedly asking people, do you have entanglements? And not that smacks of saying, well, I think you do have entanglements. And if you do, if you think that there's an entanglement of myself, and I don't know if I speak for all of my colleagues, but I think I do, please put it out here. That it's a public meeting. It should be recorded. Say what it is, if there is something.
Yeah.
But from my position, I would say that everybody here, by and large, has said that they have remote contacts with Johnson & Johnson. It's hard to live in New Jersey without having remote contacts with Johnson & Johnson.
I'll tell you what I find disingenuous is that all of us took the exact same vote on Jacobs Creek. Everyone on this dais took the exact same vote, with the exception of Mr. Dowflow, because he wasn't here at the time. And we've all said that somehow we have connections with the pharmaceutical industries. And the only person who's been asked to reiterate her answer and qualify it from a chronological perspective is Mrs. Mayor Sandem. Why? Why didn't you ask me again? Why didn't you ask Mike again? Why didn't you ask Jim again? Why is it that we all took the exact same vote? We all voted the exact same way.
Well,
and yet the only person who's being called out here is the mayor.
I really don't want to get into a conversation. We have a whole meeting ahead of us. If we could...
No, well, I'm not done. There was a similar issue. No, I'm speaking now.
Go ahead.
There was a
You were
similar
addressing
issue.
a question to me.
There was a similar issue raised before this committee, whether to pave or not to pave Aunt Molly Road. The only time that this committee ever had a split vote. Again, David Deflo was on the committee. The mayor, myself, and David Sanders was on the committee, voted not to pave. Right? Mike and Jim said they wanted to pave. Somebody stood up at that dais and came up and made the accusation that the reason why they voted to pave and not to pave because there was a wealthy resident on that road and they were in his back pocket. When she made that accusation, I was the first one to say that is pathetic, that is ridiculous. To question the integrity of either Mr. Markulek or Mr. Byrd because of the way they voted, because they didn't vote the way this resident thought they should have voted, is pathetic.
For those of you that think that I'm taking money because I've already made up my mind, that's just untrue.
Yeah, Mike, you said earlier that you were a little offended by the suggestion that any of us have done anything that is less than our professional integrity. Let me say I am extremely offended that anybody would even publicly suggest that anybody here, even based on rumor or otherwise, would do anything untoward. And I think those who think that have two choices: either publicly substantiate it or publicly apologize for it. And for anybody to say that the mayor, who is the only mayor in this entire township history, never put a task force together. You question who was on the task force. Why didn't any other mayor even put a task force together? Why was she the one to address the issue and nobody else did?
Well, I'm not finished.
Ridiculous.
I'm not finished because I've never been called ridiculous.
Well, you have now.
Well, then I didn't hear what this mayor said. I didn't hear that you responded about your wife. I didn't hear that other people commented about their family.
Why don't you ask me to reiterate my answer then?
I did. You reiterated it, and
No,
I did.
but you didn't ask me. I did on my own accord. You didn't ask me.
I didn't.
The only one you were interested in was the mayor.
Sir, I take offense that you are questioning my integrity on this.
Okay,
And
I really don't think we're going to go anywhere with this at the moment. If we could not have a discussion from the agenda, I think the members of the public have every right to ask questions, but that doesn't mean that we have to answer them, nor does it mean that we have to get into a discussion about it. If we could move on to other people in the audience who may have a question.
I'm Beth Kerr from 1139 Bear Tavern Road. I know that Ms. Sandham has mentioned that her husband hasn't been involved, but we have this wonderful thing called Google search on the computers, and we have looked up every one of you on the committee, and a company named Perligen did pop up, Ms. Sandham, and your husband, Carl J. Seiden, is on that board. And in 2005, Perligen did collaborate with Johnson & Johnson on a project. And I think that we're not trying to imply that you would use misjudgment. We're just asking you if you felt conflicted. We also heard that you mentioned to Kate Litvak at the Crossroads that you apologized for not knowing that George Washington and his men were very important. And you said that was because you were raised in England and your history was taught differently. And I would like to know if you in fact did say something like that.
Mrs. Kerr, where does my wife work? Since you did your research.
She didn't answer my question, and I'll answer yours when.
I have no doubt that Mayor Sandham knows who George Washington is and the importance of George Washington.
This is not a legal proceeding. It's not, again, it's not cross-examination. And really, I think that the principles of decorum break down real fast when it's used for cross-examination.